So nowadays I understand the players trying to find the best deal. At the same time, to what end? Because they're not learning as people what failure and rejection looks like. Pretty cool, but I didn't know. You know this from, I guess like 10, 15 years ago now when you got engaged. But like, it's a fulfilling deal when you find the right person. There's a compliment to it that I never expected, like a self-esteem, like a real authentic thing. That I didn't understand, that I don't want to say I was missing, but I hadn't experienced yet.
Yeah. I mean, you got to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, and you know how that goes. But I mean, when you find a good one, it's the irony is that when you find a good one, you absolutely know.
Yes.
Like you absolutely know. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going, like, this is what it is. This is it. And you're blessed and you're both fortunate, and go.
It makes life better, easier. Like, and I was always in the, I got to make this work. It's hard, but it takes work. And sure, it takes work, but it's not a 24-hour-a-day job. At least in my experience, it shouldn't be.
I always say this, Pete. Everything worthwhile takes work, but what are you working on, right? What are you working on? Like, there's certain things that, that shouldn't be work. That shouldn't be work. But then there's a lot of things that it's real work, It's I had a buddy, I'm not going to use his name because you know him. And I said, I'm so happy I met someone who's incredible. She's like light of my life. And he's like, I'm getting married. He's like, oh my God, you're going down, bro. I can't believe you're going down. I said, coming from that individual, I am not surprised he used that terminology, but everything in my mind was that I was going up.
Yeah.
But different people, different strokes, different folks, people process it differently,
Well, you do. And I was the guy, you're going down for so long. And it's like, I noticed there's a lot of times in my life, I find myself like, why am I fighting something?
Yeah.
It's the same reason, like for me, I can go back to like, I fought getting sober for so long.
Yeah.
Like, why am I fighting this thing? This thing is going to be good for me. Like, surrender is hard. And a lot of time work starts after that, but that's the best stuff. Like you said,
I had in Montreal, I had a sports psychologist, and I remember they told me, if you change your mindset, there were certain things that my mindset, I believed it was like so wonderful for being a combative, sports, aggressive person. And then there are other things that were just crushing for my mindset. And the therapist told me, if you just change this one thing, like, it's going to be extraordinary for you. But you choose to view it this way. And I remember thinking, why is that? I wanted to know why. Why do I do that? And he said, well, there's a lot of factors, a lot of variables that go into that. But it was really, Mark, you feel that even a bad mindset understanding of something is better than a new, fresh understanding.
Yeah. The new part's hard.
Yeah. There was some sense of security in that old one, Yes. That's it. So what are you doing, man? I see you, like, you're on ESPN, you're all over the place. You're doing a bunch of awesome stuff. Tell me.
So college football and college basketball for ESPN. That keeps me busy most of football and basketball season. More basketball than football, which is great. And then I'll do, like, next week, I'm doing the Big 12 softball tournament for ESPN. And then summer's a little slower, right? It's like I have my show that I do every day, the Pete Sousa Show, which is live on YouTube, live on X. And that's gained a lot of traction, which is cool because it started off just me in a room a year ago. This media company here in Central Texas was like, we want to do a show with you. And now it's grown, and it's grown by every day, getting your hands dirty, right? Doing the work, awkward situations, failure. So that's cool. It feels good. Like, there's self-esteem in that having built this show out, that I feel like we're just starting. So that's a lot of fun. And then still doing, the podcast about sobriety, the payoff with Pete Stories of Sobriety. We just put up a new episode yesterday. So it's going good. I this time of year can be tough for me because I'm not as busy, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And I think that it forces me to get a little introspective. You know, I have noticed, and you'll appreciate this because it's sort of deep. I just had this self-reflection yesterday or 2 days ago. You know, I have such a fear of being lazy that I pack my schedule with action stuff all the time because I don't necessarily trust myself with time alone because I'll just be like, oh, you know, I'll just shut it down, which is good, I think, to a degree, but I don't allow myself that grace at all anymore. So this is always an interesting time of year for me. It really is a time for me to get more into sobriety, more into AA, more into like that kind of connection, because that's where I get like most of my fulfillment from, if I'm truly being honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think that it sounds to me like it gives you the fulfillment that fuels you for fuels you in life and in general, but for the whole year. And then a lot of people, as you said, like you keep yourself busy because we thrive in momentum, right? And we're nervous that we lose momentum, we slow down. That's bad, right? I told one of our team members yesterday, he's guy's incredible. He's such a hard worker and he's very productive. He's like at the top. And he's like, I want to do this and I want to do this. And I said, you know, everyone wants to go all out and be beast mode. I said, I wish I could have some of my teammates speak to you about my understanding of going hard. But I said, first of all, you know, I said, but they don't believe it. They don't, I swear, Pete, they don't believe it. Like they think, I swear, you know what I get a lot? Mark, he's so zen. He's so relaxed. And I go, brother, I'm 48 years old. It took me a long time to get here. Like that wasn't always
25, 26, 27 years ago. It was a much different story. But do you feel, but let me turn it back on you. Do you feel like without that edge, without that almost insanity that you utilized every day on the football field, you would have been as successful?
That's a great question, man. Like I say, like, I had a therapist on the show and we were talking, she's awesome. She spends time in prisons, jails, and talking to like these, you know, serious offenders, like, I mean, real stuff. And she asked me about that. And I said, the only reason I played football, because there was nothing at the time. There was a lot of reasons I played, but the main reason was there was nothing at the time that I could take my aggression in out and be violent. Like, I'm not kidding at all. And I said, the reason why I was a good football player, if you looked on the football field, I was actually the most aggressive young person. And I mean, you were there. So, I mean, it's not a fabrication. I mean, you tell me,
not at all.
If I'm delusional, please tell me, tell everyone for all I care. Like, but that's what I was really good at. Like, that was the main thing. Right. So, but to answer your question, I think that, yeah, you need that. Like the most, you know, life now for probably both of us is all about creating some sense of balance.
Yes.
And the people who thrive there, if we're being honest, are the most unbalanced human beings around. I mean, that's just what it is, you know? Yeah. So I felt like I just talked to a young man this week who we were thinking about hiring for the team. And he said, you know, I used to pull from, like, there's a lot of people who don't believe in me and that I got to prove everyone wrong. He said, now I want to prove people right, like the people who believe in me. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. So in the sports arena, you're doing something. There's a lot of people who say, I can't make it. I got to make it. I got to make it. I got to get mine. That turns off at a certain point. Like, meaning, like, you can only pull from the darkness for so long. And at some point you have to say, wait a minute, my mother believes in me. Coach Reed believes in me. Pete believes in me. My friends believe in me. I got to prove them right. I don't want to let them down. And I believe there's longevity in pulling from that. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I found that in my own life in sobriety, like, and I still struggle with the balance because I do need some of that, you know, there was a point in time, like, 13, 14 years ago, before I got sober, I had not a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Sure, addiction, the disease, that's a huge part of it. But also, I was responsible for a lot of that damage. But I also felt resentful because of that's just the unhealthiness in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've saved like that 2% of resentments still. And that's, I'm not saying it's right, but I dip into those a lot of times now. I'm like, I still have that thing. Like, I am going to show them.
Yeah.
There were people like, 15 years ago who were like, that guy is a big F up as you could ever be.
Yeah.
And, like, he'll never make anything of himself. And I hear those voices, I play more on a loop. The voicemails or the conversations where I was told you're not good enough right now. And this is in sobriety, right? Recently, or the emails, hey, we're not looking, or the non-responses, right? That are deafening, right? The no response, right? From a job or from a person or from somebody you reach out to. Like, that stuff still motivates me, but I need to be careful with that. That's why it's great to surround myself with people like you, because there is a time when, if you're living the right way, I've come to understand this, and it's all for me through sobriety, through 12 steps. When you're living the right way, it's okay to sit still and not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah,
because sometimes, you can make the extra phone call, or you can be pushy, and people don't like pushy, there's a way. And if you're living the right way and you have that, I call it the sunlight of the spirit, when I'm tapped in, when that stuff is bouncing through you, right? Working through you, because it's not of me,
mm-hmm.
right? But when it's working through me and it's going out there in the universe, that's way more attractive than somebody who can seem desperate. And the thing about all this is, like, it's pretty simple. If I stay in gratitude and try to stay in a state of grace, then I can bring, like, that unmatched enthusiasm to life that other folks that don't have the gratitude and the grace maybe don't have the opportunity to bring. And the only reason I'm able to tap into that is because I had the gift of desperation 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll do whatever you guys tell me, people in sobriety, to change, because I'm going to die and I can't live like this anymore.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's certainly a beautiful story, and I know your story very well. And it's even more beautiful how you're impacting people. So I think that's incredible. And to your point, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with having, some of that motivation in your back pocket of the people who didn't return calls, didn't believe in you, didn't see anything special. In fact, sometimes say negative things about you, and either you hear it, you're not supposed to hear it, but you hear it, or it gets back to you and you're like, it's a bit, it can be demoralizing in the moment, but I also think it's good. I had a good friend who recently did a fitness show, and she didn't win. And I said, I saw her like 2 days later. I said, what's going on? She's like, I can't believe I didn't win. I'm like, this is your first show. And I was like, she's like, well, I expect to win. I said, well, I gave her the Austin Powers. I want a like royal mansion made out of gold coins, but it's not in the cards for me right now. So it's like, yeah, it's good to lose. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but
it is.
Oh, dude, I said, how about when we were in college? Before you got there were many losing seasons. And I said, I can't believe.
Jim Marshall, he recruited you, right?
Oh, no, Jim Reed recruited me.
Jim Reed recruited, but Marshall was your coach first year.
Yeah, he was the head coach. And I'm like, I can't even believe I'm here. Because remember, when I went there, Coach Reed left. He went to BC.
Okay.
And I said to Coach Reed, I said, I'm so happy I'm going to end up going to BC. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't go to Richmond. I said, the only reason I went is because of you. Right. And he's like, hopefully I'm back. Right. And that ended, but it worked out. We lost. In fact, when we got there, I don't know if we were the worst, but we were in the conversation of the worst team in 1AA football. And then when we left, we were the number one team in 1AA football. We were ranked number one when we were 9-2. We beat the Division 1A teams. But to win that first game on the road at Rhode Island, double overtime, I was like, I can't believe it's so hard to win. Like that was the hardest thing. It was like, everyone's like, practice is way harder. Yeah, that's fair. And for the most part, that's true. But I'll never forget that game. I was thinking that was insanely hard. Ironically, Rhode Island ended like 2-9. We went 9-2.
Yeah.
And what was that, Pete? How much? That's it.
It's a game of inches, and
That's
it's those
it.
sliding doors moments. And I think that is when the belief and the connectivity of, like you talked about, momentum and the power of the group. The ball bounces your way a few times. I very much, and you've been closer to team sports at the highest level, right? But I believe when the ball bounces your way early in the season and things start to go your way, there is definitely that momentum where it's like, okay, it's not the here we go again, right? When the ball bounces the other way and you're like, oh, guys can go in the tank. It's just how it is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and it happens, and it's almost amazing to imagine that it happens at some of the highest levels of sport, but it does. But when the ball does bounce your way, I think that there really is a power greater than the individual moving the whole team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Like, you know, we assume like someone's a high level, a Division 1A athlete, they must have a super strong mind. I'm like, not necessarily. I said, I don't know why you assume that, but the college sports is vast. Yeah. And then even professional, like I have no like delusions, like to be a professional athlete, professional football player, you have to have what we say with our team is that each person on the team they're like the X-Men. They're superheroes. They have many talents, but they have a superhero trait. To get in the NFL, you have to have a superhero trait, whatever that may be.
What was yours?
What's that?
What was yours?
I mean, I honestly, I think it's like the will to get up and not stop. Like not stop. Like I remember in conditioning in a game, like guys get tired. Like that's real. Just because you're a pro athlete, like guys get tired. They have their hands on their knees and they're like wiped out. Now, if I'm super conditioned and I gotta, cover a punt, or a guy gotta block a guy in a punt or cover something, like I'm not a better athlete. I'm just better conditioned, and I will not get tired. Right. And that's, believe it or not, like there's guys who run 4.3, 4.4 who are linebackers, but they're exhausted. Now they run a 4.7, 4.8, right?
Yes.
So it's like, okay, I just brought this guy down to my level. Now we're going to see where the rubber meets the road, because now it's about, perseverance and pushing through that barrier. And most of the time, because in the NFL, as you know, there are anomalies. Like James Harrison could be 6 feet, 260, 270. And then you have, at the time we had Mo Lewis, 6'5", 280. Those are anomalies. But for the most part, 6'1", 6'2", 225, 230, 240 is a lot of parity, right? And when there's a lot of parity, now it comes down to their mentality, to their mindset, and what they are telling themselves, well, how they're speaking to themselves in between plays.
Yeah.
And that's like, as you know, I know you know it well. I mean, this is your profession. I want to hear all about your stuff, but that's the gift of like how you talk to yourself. And there's been moments where I talk to myself in a horrible way. I wouldn't let someone talk to me that way, but I'm talking to myself that way. And like, Mark, what are you doing? Like you're wearing this jersey. Like what? It's not a trick. You didn't get lucky.
Yeah, I know,
you know
right?
Like,
yeah.
But I'm like, oh, I'm lucky. I don't deserve to be here. I'm like, no. You at some point, I understand things have to bounce your way, and there is some luck involved. Yeah. But at the same time, you did earn it. Like, let's give yourself a moment, right? And that's when you pull yourself out of it, and you say, I deserve to be here. Like I'm doing special things, but you forget. Well,
there's a moment. It's like almost like I heard this great speaker in recovery say it once, like that. It's imposter syndrome, right? But like Bill Belichick's going to stop practice and be like, gentlemen, we have an imposter. Oh. Megna, Get
Oh,
your, that's in
oh
our
yeah.
minds. We think
Oh
that's
no,
what's
that's
going to
real.
happen.
That when he stops practice, I look over my shoulder. I'm like, I said, "Oh, geez, I hope he doesn't mention my name," because the probability of him saying something positive about my name is very low.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, that's anyone. You know, I remember Bill
Yeah.
Parcells stopped practice. There was an ISO. This was Jets training camp, and there was an ISO, and there was a running back named Odell Collins from Georgia, I think Georgia, and he was like 6'1", 250. And ISO came my way, and as I hit it, something happened. I didn't like turn my back. I just kind of didn't face it up. So Parcells blew the whistle. He stopped practice, and he goes, "Can I ask you a question, son?" I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Are you afraid of contact?" And I said, "No, sir." And he goes, "Oh, good, because we're going to run it again, and now you know it's coming." and, I was thinking, all right, this is great. I just got to run through this guy's face, right? Well, he knows too, and he's a great athlete, so he's trying to run through my face. The amount of velocity we hit each other and we stood each other up, it was cringing.
Yeah.
And everyone like gave all that whole thing, right? And then he stopped practice again, and he said, "Hey, Mark." I looked over my shoulder. He went, and I was thinking, he doesn't miss anything, right? He doesn't miss anything. Yeah, but you worry. You definitely worry, and you have the imposter syndrome. And moments like that don't exactly help. All of this stuff, and I'm dying to hear your thoughts on where where sports are today. But those moments don't help us. Like the way it was coaching back then and the way it's coaching today, we both know it's vastly different.
Yes,
I mean,
it is vastly different. And I listened to so many of those books, right, about the head coaches and what the Parcells one and the Belichick one and Al Davis. I just pour over those books, and those it ain't the mental board of health we're talking about.
No.
It's just not.
No, those guys are responsible for more therapy sessions than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
I still carry it. I still carry some of that stuff. I'm like, man, I'm never going to forget that. I'm never going to get that. I remember there was a day where we were hanging out before practice on the field, and everyone's kind of shooting the stuff. And I was standing next to a kid named JP Machado. He was a free agent from Illinois. He actually ended up making the team and playing a lot.
Yeah,
just
I remember
a blue collar player, great player. And Parcells walked by practice, and he goes, "How you guys doing?" I said, "Great, coach." I said immediately. I didn't hesitate. I'm like, great, coach, right? And he looked at JP, and JP goes, "I'm doing all right, coach." And I stepped backwards because I knew something was coming. and Parcells took 2 steps, turned around and looked at him, and he said, "What did you just say?" He said, I'm doing all right, coach. Again. And he said, "Son, you play for the New York Jets. When I ask you a question about how you're doing, you better say, 'Coach, I am doing effing great. You're very fortunate to be here, son. Don't ever forget that." And he walked away, and I was like, I'm so happy I said I'm doing great. I just spit it out. I just wanted him away from me, This guy's like 6'4", 270, huge human being. But what are your thoughts, Pete, in regards to like how it's changed? Because it obviously certainly has. And I don't think it's all negative. I think it is different. And I think it is something that, people want to hear your thoughts on. So.
Well, as far as we want to talk like NIL and that stuff, like the mindset within it, because being around it.
Yeah, I think I think you should start like high level, like the coaching approach in general has changed drastically. Like it's changed drastically. Like you're just not going to lean into a player like the movie Whiplash, right? And by the way, I had Coach Cullen on last week.
You did?
Yeah.
I saw the title, the get off session.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming. So, I mean, he was great. I mean, there were a few things that I kind of wanted to ask, but I referenced, the movie Whiplash, of course, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I said, "Coach, there's a movie called Whiplash, and there's a scene where the teacher pushes the kid so hard, he almost kills him and he almost breaks. And then there's another scene later in the movie where they're in the cafe.
Yep.
Remember that in the diner and they're having a meal, like they run into each other. And he said, you don't understand what I was trying to do with you. I was trying to push you to be your best. And the kid says, but what if you push someone too hard where they break and they never end up being the best? And the teacher says, you don't get it. The best would never give up or break. And I asked Coach Cullen, what are your thoughts on that? And he said, you know, I believe that it takes something extraordinary to become the best. And it's not exactly normal. And you have to be able to go through things. That doesn't mean you can handle them and you're perfect. It means that if you have a breakdown, you still bounce back.
Yes.
That's what he was saying. And Coach Cullen believed that. Like, what are your thoughts on that mentality? Because it doesn't happen anymore, Pete.
No. Well, what happens now, and I'm a decent guy to talk to about this because of all the college basketball I do. You know, you go to shoot-arounds or practice the day before, and you have like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, or maybe 5 if it's a coach that has somewhere they need to go. But it'll be you, the analyst, you know, myself calling the games play-by-play, the analyst, usually a former player or a coach, and the coach, right, the head coach of the team. And they'll talk to you about what's going on. And a lot of times I'm very grateful for those opportunities because it becomes almost like a therapy session because, you know, you'll be talking to, let's say, a Big 12 coach, and he'll talk to you about, man, I've noticed this, right? These coaches are who they are. So they're not going to change that. Right. But it is demoralizing for some of these coaches to treat a player today, let's say John Smith, the way that they treated Mark Megna. Because John Smith is going to respond much differently, and his response may be, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm going to another school.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to take this crap. I can go somewhere else where I might play more. I might get paid the same amount of money. And the unfortunate part of that is I think to a man we all believe, and someday these young players will understand this too, is that doesn't really – there's certain instances, right, where you want the players to have freedom of movement, to be able to change schools and be in a situation that fits them better and behooves them and their family in the best way possible, right? Because circumstances – you know, you certainly could have used a little bit more than the Pell Grant they were giving you. You know, when you were at Richmond, right? Your family could have used that.
Oh, yeah.
And so nowadays I understand the players trying to find the best deal. At the same time, you know, to what end? Because they're not learning as people what failure and rejection looks like. And so on some level, you have coaches that are like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I'm going to and this is a make or break moment for a lot of coaches in college sports today. Yeah. Because I'm very interested to see, for an example, a Bill Self, right? Now, Bill Self this past year, you know, there's a lot of times where in big-time college basketball, let's say 5 years ago, I'm recruiting you, Mark Megna, since you're in 7th grade, right? You know me, your parents know me. You choose to come to school to play for me, right? There is that deep connection we have. And an argument or me telling you did something wrong and taking you to task and holding you accountable, it's not going to blow up our relationship because we go back, right? Well, now you've got guys who you're literally the transfer portal opens and you're trusting your assistants and middle people who are supposedly know these guys and their families, but really don't, right? No knock on the families or the kids themselves. So now you get intel like, well, this is a guy, he's a 5-star player, and he fits your system. You'll love him, coach. Well, I'm not saying that's exactly how it goes, but everything is moving so fast that they're taking on these players who they don't know anything about. Right. So now it's January, and you're in a Big 12, like literally bloodbath against Houston at home in Allen Fieldhouse, a double overtime game. And you've got guys who, like, you look in their eyes, and I believe some of these coaches are like, I don't know this dude at all, you know, and I'm looking at you in the huddle and I need you to dig down. And it's like, and it's not like I'm getting to know this guy. It's like, I don't know this guy and he's going to be gone in 2 more months. And I think that's a weird spot for a lot of people to be in. And I'm very interested to see, I know there's a lot of coaches who are, you know, also frustrated with the lack of honesty that's going on. Right? Because if Mark Megna, and I learned this again working for ESPN, because you do have, I didn't play small forward for Michigan. Like, that's not why I'm in the room. I'm in the room because I call games for ESPN, and I've been granted this access that I am so grateful for, right? But it's also access I'm familiar with from being around guys like you and college football and pro sports, working in the NBA, doing PR. So I kind of know how to act. But you're party to these conversations where I get these honest truths from coaches. Like, there are middlemen, and you're familiar with this from being a player. Like, a guy who will come to a school and say, hey, Mark Megna is looking like to get away from Alabama, and he'll probably come to your school for like $2 million. And they'll be like, well, we can give him like $1 million, but whatever. So then you'll go back, the middleman will go back to Mark Megna and say, I can get you $2 million at Alabama if you'll leave Georgia. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to leave Georgia. I'm going to go over here. Yeah. And then we'll go back to Alabama and say, okay, we're ready for the $2 million deal. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? We never told anybody that you would get $2 million. We told your representative we would give you $1 million, right? But so there's a lot of that going on. And it used to go on strictly with like agents and teams, right? Like, an agent would sign you saying, I can get you taken in the 6th round.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
At all. Yeah. But now it's happening on the amateur level, on the college level, and there's no policing to it. At least in NFL agents, like, there's a certification process, and once in a while you get a wild card who wasn't certified. But now it's like, that's all you have. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's so much at play here. The best players, I'm a needy guy. The best players the best coaches are going to stick and stay true to themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that this thing will be what it is. But I think there's a lot of like uncomfortable change that's going on for some of these coaches.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, like, it's hard to know when you say you're in that game, you're in a bloodbath. How do you connect with a dude who you spent very little time with? Like, you don't know, if I got to support this guy. Like, there are people that I've worked with that want to be pushed really hard. And then there are other people like, no, man, please don't do that to me. I will fold. Yeah. They'll tell me. But that happened, that communication, that happened over years.
Yes.
And now it's like, as you said, they just bounce. The problem is, like, it goes back to that movie. This kid became one of the greatest drummers, right? You led to believe maybe one of the greatest drummers of all time. But how do you get some? You saw Joe Cullen push people to a place that there was hard coaching everywhere.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that was very unique and different than most.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it was a lot different. And I think that you could say, oh, they wouldn't go for it today. I know that no pressure, no diamonds. I mean, like, truly, like, I think that I would take I went to Richmond to play. I had a heart problem, couldn't play. They kept me on scholarship. You know the story. Maybe, a lot of you people listening don't know, but that's the story. I stayed affiliated with the football team. That little bit of relationship I had with Coach Cullen still in my life made me such a better man, right? The structure that was brought on by that football team, that program, that structure that I hated, I had great disdain for, right?
Yeah.
That, I look back now, and with the warmest, like, it's the connection I share with you as a brother. It's like, there's stuff that I had no clue. I was in the middle of this magical season of my life, and I hated it.
Oh, I mean, you hated it, and maybe you. By the way, it was extraordinary to have you as a brother there, and like, there's so many special, fulfilling, foundational moments of life that we all shared. We shared. Maybe if it got too hard and you said you hated it, maybe you try to get out of things. Maybe you didn't receive all the development. Maybe you push back on it, and you don't realize that all the things that you hate, and in that moment you are certain you don't need it. What did it do for you today? As you just said.
Dude, it taught me, it literally taught, first of all, it taught me how to fail. It taught me, like, even before I got sober, I was never really afraid of moments that were like nightmare scenarios. I always felt like I could get out of it or move through it. And I think that experience had a lot to do with it, you know, having to be places and do things I did not want to do that other people in the college I went to were not subject to doing, right? Like there was a group of people who I considered were living free, you know, like regular students.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's so much different being affiliated with the football program like that. And that goes back to our point earlier about the athlete of today. You know, I'm not saying that we need to have like this incredible boundary for young athlete or boundaries and walls built up for these incredible athletes to flourish. But I do believe, and I'm not the guy with the answer, but I do believe that they're missing out on a lot of the special sauce, right? A lot of what you're talking about with Coach Cullen, you know, what you went through to become a guy who ended up playing in the NFL, you know, a guy who you're like a 0-star prospect, right? Who ends up playing in the NFL. Like that's unheard of, but that's the type of process that a coach like Coach Cullen would put you through, right? That grueling process that would almost break you and maybe did.
Yeah.
Times, right?
I think it broke
so these
many
guys
times
now
over.
They're denying themselves those opportunities, and it's like it's kind of a bummer. Like, and we say this in AA, dude. Come all the way in, sit all the way down, and stay. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't gonna be easy, but if you sit down and you lock in, you know, and you give us 90 days, we will refund you your misery, dude. You can go back out and do whatever the hell you want to do. And I think that even during a football season or a basketball season or a long marathon, you notice that over certain points in time, maybe it's 90 days, maybe it's, you know, 6 months being on campus and being part of the football team. But you do get those shots, right? Like whether you make a big play behind the line of scrimmage and you're like, boom, now this is why I'm doing all this work. You know, it happens along the way. It's not like this journey filled with darkness, right?
Right.
Like you have that huge win at Rhode Island and you're like, oh, this is what all this is for.
That's
right. Now I get it, you know? And so those moments, right? Because you talk about self-esteem. How do you get self-esteem? Well, you do esteemable stuff. So builds that real, and for me early in life, right? I got so sidetracked with my alcoholism and addiction, but like, you know, you search that substance or something outside that makes you feel like this, you know, like those moments we're talking about on the football field or having success as a team. Like those are not like specific to substance. Like you can feel those magical moments and those highs through doing the right things in life, going through terribly difficult situations and coming out on the other side, whether that's in the playing field of life or whether it's on the football field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think factors that play heavy on that is we have people that absolutely care about us in our lives and they will tell us things, meaning like, remember a Bronx Tale? And he says, Mickey Mantle, I can't believe he made Mickey Mantle cry. And he goes, Mickey Mantle. He goes, you think Mickey Mantle cares about you?
Yep.
Like, meaning you think Mickey Mantle's going to pay your bills when your father can't pay the rent?
Yeah.
Like we have like people in our lives that really believe that they not only they care about us, and they probably do, but they know what's best for us.
Yes.
So they're going to get in people's ear and they can say, hey, this is what you need to do. And this is the most important thing. And then when it doesn't go well and you turn to them, they don't even return your call. And like you get people that would tell student athletes, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And you go, wait a minute, are you kicking butt in the lifts? Are you, killing it on the track? Are you killing yourself in match-drills? Are you killing yourself in the practice? Are you doing everything you're supposed to be doing? And the answer is no, 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 no. So how can they give you advice based on a story that isn't even real?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not even a real story, right? There's four sides to a story. Your side, my side, the side that really happened, and the side of an onlooker, right? Yeah. So it's like, I think that people have to be mindful of like, what do I want? What's the real story? How can I be better? And then what it goes into, Pete, is like, I need to understand that it's going to suck. It's going to be hard. And I can't just tap out and bow out every time it gets hard. Because what you said before, you know how people say you should be more confident, have confidence. I mean, that's foolish to say have confidence. You can't tell someone to have confidence. It needs to be built. And the way it's built is from doing little things that get progressively bigger, more important, more challenging, and you follow through on them and you complete them. Like if it's like, I got to show up to this, I don't show up, confidence drops.
Yep.
If I don't finish my run, confidence drops. If I don't do my off-season workouts, confidence drops. How can you compete against someone whose confidence is through the roof because they crushed every single workout and they're doing everything they're supposed to do?
Yeah.
But then you have someone in your ear saying, you don't get to do that. That's not important. They don't understand what's important. You know what's best for you. And if you can't have honest conversations with yourself of what you actually need, which is to commit to something, anything, and follow through, then you're delusional. You're just going to take whatever mediocre attitude you have and just bring that to the next thing. And it's hard to tell people that because they don't want to accept that. It's no, you're wrong. This is better. And it's like, well, I'm not trying to be right. I'm just telling you, all I know is that I'm watching your behavior and I saw you quit on 4 different things.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
and you're just beating them to the punch because the truth is, again, this is a little bit more dramatic, but it's like, you're not punished for your sins. You're punished by your sins. And like you carry those shortcuts around with you. Nobody else does.
Oh yeah.
You do. So to have somebody around that can kind of, you're going to figure it. If you're going to do it your way, you're going to find out the hard way, like what the right way is. And hopefully you'll find out before it's too late. That's what happened to me. You know?
Yeah. And I know it's the big picture of this topic is if Joe Cullen doesn't push myself and a few other guys the same way, do you think they become whatever they become?
No. I mean, I think
seriously,
no, there's no chance. I think honestly, in today's basketball, like Joanne Roberts played for Houston, and I had a chance to watch a lot of Houston and talk to Kelvin Sampson a lot. Nobody played more games in the history of Houston. Nobody won more games in the history of Houston than Joanne Roberts did. That's like a unicorn today. He got to Houston at 6'6", 195. The dude now is like 6'8", 240. Right? Wow. He should get drafted, and if he doesn't, he'll make training camp and play for a team.
Right.
That I swear this dude is like the last of the Mark Megnas, right? Like Kelvin Sampson built this guy into an absolute dog, right? And he is going to reap the benefits from it. He already has, like on the floor and stuff. What it's done for his soul and as a person, it's unmatched, I'm sure, in his mind. And we're about to see it now, like financially and that stuff pay off. But there is a certain, I hope, and I think we do kind of overrate the movement, right? There are still a lot of dogs left there.
Oh yeah.
Out there who want to be coached, right? Who want to be run into the ground, right? Who want the hard coaching. But I think there's just way too many back doors now that people can go through to get out of situations with the guys like Coach Cullen who are building a masterpiece, and I could see that in you. Like I knew that what Coach Cullen was doing was crazy, but like at the same time, your play on the field was undeniable. You were a very good example. And for people that don't know, and Mark, you can just hang in here and take these compliments. Like it was like literally a master class in how to play defense and defensive line every day for you. You didn't stop. You did not stop going 150 miles per hour, much to the chagrin of members of the scout team. And like that, I mean, but that's how you only knew that one speed, and that brought you to the most elite level there is in football, and you held a spot there for a while. Yeah. And that is all about, that relationship with Coach Cullen and being, in that whirlpool, right? Yeah. For all those years, and you dominated. Like, it's not like it was this crazy weird thing going on over here. Coach Cullen's yelling at you, and then you're going out and you're like, this also ran. No, you were dominant. And I think and so that goes into some of the coaching, right? Like you find your subjects, right? Like he wasn't spending that time with Seth Watson, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like no knock on Seth. I just think Seth had different plans.
Shout out to Seth. Yeah. Look, I of course I appreciate that. It's super kind. And
Seth Watson, the first scholarship player ever in the history of Vermont, as far as we know.
As far as we know. I really do appreciate that. Yeah. I think what it means a lot, Pete, especially coming from you. And it was, yeah, I was certainly motivated by Coach Cullen and by, I didn't want to let my teammates down, but I also, what comes into that is, number one, I didn't like Coach Cullen. Like, people have to understand that. Like, I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I did know that he cared. I knew he cared, but I didn't like him when I was being coached by him. And I've told him that many times. So people are like, oh, I don't like him. That might actually be good, right? Because you're pushing, right? You're being pushed. It's like things are coming out of you in a sense of urgency is coming out of you that you didn't even know you had. And then the other thing is, I firmly believe that I could get axed at any moment from that starting position. Like, and I don't know if anyone else saw that, but I was super paranoid about, I can't afford to slow down because I have another level of imposter syndrome. And I'm like, maybe they'll realize that I'm not that good and I shouldn't be here. And I was scared. So that came through as well. But it just pains me that I love sports. I love team. And I just think that there's so much potential out there that may not ever come to fruition because of I'm going to be honest, the opportunities or the possibilities that players can just skip out, and it makes me sad. It really does make me sad.
I do have faith. I have faith in athletes. I think that the pendulum will swing back. I do think that we're going to see stories of, it's kind of almost like when remember like when Kevin Garnett, right? And then there was a wave of guys who high school seniors who would go to the NBA and they weren't Kevin Garnett, right? Like guys like Leon Smith who get picked in the first round by the Mavericks and you never hear from again, right? Like, and we snapped out of that. A little bit of help, right, with the NCAA and the NBA getting together, but like I think that we're going, probably get worse before it gets better. But I do believe that these, young people are smarter than ever today. Like that's true as well. And
that is true.
They have more access to bad stuff, but like the young person on average is just more intelligent than the young person was in my group, certainly in my circle of friends growing up, like in high school. So I think they're going to understand that like, the shortcuts don't bring the type of long-term rewards that the stuff we're talking about truly does, because not only did you make the NFL, but you also were turned into this person who would have success after the NFL. And that all goes into obviously the work you do on yourself now, but the work that begun at the University of Richmond with Coach Reed, Coach Cullen, and teammates like Eric King, and the list goes on. It's just, and there's also too that magic that I think about the relationships that we have. Dude, I didn't even play. And I feel like I was in the trenches with you, right? With Matt Davis. And there are guys now who I don't know what that'll be like for them. Like you parachute in, you play 9 games with the dude, and then you're on to another school. And it's like 9 more. There won't be those type. And I don't know that anybody's going to look to seek and rectify that, but that's going to be a bummer, right? That some of those relationships just aren't as strong as they were in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate because as you said before, it's a magical time of your life and like the bonds, like in one day, I talked to Coach Cullen, Coach Reed, Elio, and Andrew Bogle in one day.
How cool is that?
And I was like, I was just so happy all day. And just and Elio, that conversation was amazing. I mean, this guy is like, we could do a whole show. Like he's supposed to come and visit, but you know how that goes. It's like I would hammer the under, right? So like he's a piece of work. But
I have one great story to tell you. I
want to hear it
because this speaks to what we were talking
about.
This
isn't
earlier.
The Fortenberry story, is it?
No.
No, because Coach Reed told me the Fortenberry story like 3 weeks ago. And I was like, I know the story. I was there, So go ahead. Tell me the story. I'm dying to hear it. So for people who don't know, my roommate, I was paired came in from Massachusetts, and I went on a visit with the young man named Elio Imbranoni from Westwood, Mass.
Westwood, yeah.
And Elio was actually a great athlete, but he was when I say he was a comedian, he was always let down to have fun. He was just awesome. He's an awesome person, but it's a lot of fun. And Elio was my roommate for 4 years, and I've known Elio forever. And there's a lot that Elio-ish type things, but he was a lot of fun, and he was a great football player. And we have countless stories about him. So Pete's going to tell us a story.
Well, here's
about
one.
My college roommate.
He was an absolute light. He really was. I mean, he was just.
And he hasn't passed. He's still with us. But.
Oh yeah, he still is an absolute light. So yeah, we talk about him like he's that much of a legend. But I can remember we used to Todd McShay, and Todd obviously NFL draft analyst with the Ringer, formerly of ESPN. Todd and I we were both hurt. I had a heart problem. Todd had a back problem. We couldn't play, and Coach Reed was going to make us earn our money. I had a scholarship, and I think Todd was getting some kind of money. So Coach Reed was like, you guys are going to break down film, whatever the hell that looked like. I mean, so we were sitting in these very small rooms next to the coaches' offices. I mean, the rooms were it was like 15 square feet, me and McShay. We had these two small ass TV monitors and this bank of VHSs or whatever. I mean, that was a rough time. I remember Coach Reed. I was like, Coach Reed, I was smoking a lot of pot in college. I was out of my mind, drinking all the time. And I remember Coach Reed was like, where's the Furman film? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. He's
by the way, not a good answer. Not a good answer.
I don't want to hear about it. Find it. And I'm like, oh, I got to come up with this. I might have to drive to Furman,
Right.
But so it was that kind of stuff. We were under a little hostility too. But we could hear the coaches and some of the lower level coaches, maybe not on full salary yet, had the small offices by us. Coach Frank Leonard, who just retired after a decorated football coaching career, finished up at Penn State. Coach Leonard's office was right by us. And Elio had not been going to class at all. And the running backs, Coach Leonard, Elio had to check in with him as far as his classes were concerned. And Elio wasn't going to class, hardly at all, military science especially. So he has to go sit down in front of Coach Leonard, and Todd and I can hear this conversation. And Coach Leonard is like, well, I've got to call you military science professor, and this is a military guy. I mean,
by the way, the impressions are very good. Very good.
I got to call the military science teacher. What's his name? And Elio's like, Private Fortenberry. Now, everybody knows a private is the lowest level you can get in the military. Course, yeah. Right? So, but Coach Leonard's not thinking. He's moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. So he calls this guy up. He's like General or Captain Fortenberry. I forget which one is his real name. But you hear Coach Leonard call this military guy up to discuss Elio's insufficient attendance and grades. Yes, Private Fortenberry. And you could tell on the other end that this guy Fortenberry is like, it's Captain Fortenberry. Coach.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Captain Fortenberry, no disrespect, sir. No disrespect.
That's right.
And then you got Elio sitting across from him. He knows that the SHIT storm is coming, but it was worth the joke. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that was every day for us. There was stuff like that.
Every day. I mean, every day there was something, some sort of prank. I think that you form incredible bonds with people that go through hardship, and there's a lot of comedy. Ironically, you get a bunch of really hardworking, aggressive, tough human beings who are just awesome human beings, but there's a lot of comedy that gets you through those days. A lot of comedy, and that's very helpful. As you said, it's light, but it's very helpful. It's really
very helpful. And there's one other story I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, please.
That speaks to the team bonding and how it can be so dark, your perception at the time. I was last year I had a game at BYU, and it was before Mark Pope got the job at Kentucky. So he's the head coach at BYU. It was actually at Kansas State, and we're talking to him before the game. And Mark Pope is a super cool guy, but he's not one to give you a ton before. He's just not that type of coach, right? He won't tell you a ton about what's going on with his team. He kind of wants to talk to the media and move on. Even the national guys, right, which is who we are for these games. So but it was right after Pitino had called out his players at St. John's because Mark Pope played for Pitino at Kentucky. So Rick Pitino, obviously now the head coach of St. John's, was calling out his guys from St. John's, like, we're not athletic, we're not doing this, This is 2 years ago. And we were kind of, at this point, we're off the record. And I just asked Pope, I was like, what was it like playing for Pitino? And he like looks around and made sure like nobody was like around. He goes, let me tell you something. He goes, it was the worst 365 days a year, like 24 hours a day. You were looking over your shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. He's like, it was like the worst, hardest thing. And he's like, but I talked to some of my old teammates, like guys that you're in that quote unquote foxhole with. He's like,
yeah.
And all we do is talk about how amazing it was.
Yeah.
And all we do is talk about how like it made us ready for the world that we're a part of today. Like nothing is as hard as that was. Mm-hmm. And, you don't reap the rewards quite as great as that was. So your muscle memory is kind of tied to that too. That exhaustion and that absolutely that annihilation that is being a member of a team like that, what that does for you as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
And the magic that brings. And I thought that was I was like, wow, it was the first time he'd really kind of opened up, and you could tell it was something he would have wanted to talk about for days.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard countless stories about people who have gone through hellish type programs and they just come out the other side and they're just phenomenal people. But you can think, without naming names, you could think out personalities, that how they started, how they finished, and where they are in life today. Like I'm thinking about Joe Douglas was a GM in the NFL.
Yeah.
Pete Sousa works for ESPN, crushes it. Todd McShay is huge in the industry. You have Andrew Bogle's a surgeon, right? I could go on and on. There's like a lot of people. Mania Moore, NFL Players Association at the top. DeJuan Jones scouting, Sean Gustus scouting, and they're not like scouts. They're like high level people who kind of run the NFL. Like these guys are. Do you think that happens if they don't go through all that hardship, and then when they get in a room and they have job opportunities and there's 15 scouts, they rise to the top? Why do you think they rise to the top?
Well, I think it's exactly because of what we're talking about. And I think now this is one thing that we can say to young people who are paying attention. The opportunity now is greater than ever for people to kind of sink their teeth into something and stand out, because I think there's so many people who are just not necessarily focused on being average, but being an average person is something that's on the table and is just A-okay.
I'm not joking, Pete. I could talk to you forever. I want to talk to you more, but I know you have more important things to do.
No, I don't.
I got two questions for you. The first thing is like, what has been like the best experience for you in the field? Like you talk to so many coaches and so many players. Maybe it's an experience that you would just, wow, that was incredible, or it was a lesson for you. Anything,
I'll
Pete,
tell
that's
you.
Yeah, please.
I have a good one. And I've never really talked about this, but it's like, it's a safe space here. But like, so, nobody's asked me that question, but I know this is the most valuable thing that's ever happened to me. I had just signed my contract with ESPN. Like this was 3 years ago. And it was the second football game of the season I did with your buddy, Takeo Spikes. And
oh man, he's please
go on.
Please go on.
He really, by the way, it was ingratiating for me to mention you, and you guys were with the Bengals together. So he was like, he was awesome. He and I got along great. I mean, we get to this game, I'm throwing 100 miles an hour. I'm just like in my rhythm. And, the day before the game, there was this, I do a ton of research like most broadcasters do. And you just kind of find so much stuff about these guys. And I discovered the day before the game that this kid from Kentucky had been in foster care like his whole life. And he was basically recruited to play at Vanderbilt, out of the foster care system. And I, working in Central Texas, I was a news anchor before I committed totally to sports. I did stories because I was fascinated with the trials and tribulations of foster kids. I did stories about getting foster kids adopted. Like literally meet with these kids. They're phenomenal. Just put them out there so people see them and maybe want to adopt them, and you get people involved in foster care. So
That's
that was
awesome.
like a huge missing of mine, right? Yeah. So we're doing this game, and I make this discovery about this kid, Ray Davis, that he's now on the Buffalo Bills. Great kid. He was in foster care in Jersey, around Philly, and he got recruited by Vanderbilt, and then he ends up playing in Kentucky. Amazing story. And I tell that story, but I kind of like crowbar it into a game, and like into the second half. He's playing awesome, and the way that I said it was not like. It was just a little too dramatic. I said, like, the clip's out there. People have seen it. I'm like, here's a guy, 7 months ago when he got in the transfer portal, everybody wanted him. And, 15 years ago when he was in foster care, nobody wanted him. Now the kid said that. And later on in my statement, I mentioned the article that was mentioned in that story. I attributed all this, but like a small clip got out. And I'm telling you, it was like, the New York Post is picking it up, every publication, like, cause literally I had to I was like, oh my God, Barstool put it out there. This other couple famous comedians, people were like, everybody. So I'm at dinner with Spikes afterwards. We're at this nice steakhouse and my phone starts to buzz in my pocket, like a lot. And I'm like, oh, like this must be like, hey, people, I did awesome. Let me see what people were saying about me. And I'm like, oh my God. And like, it had gotten out of Barstool. And I remember looking at everybody I was with, the producer, they're like, what? Like, nobody noticed or remembered anything. This is like 3 hours after the game. And I've been taught this in recovery. Like, I made a mistake in a sense that there was a spot for that story in the game. And I didn't have the time to get it in, right? I just didn't have the time to do it the right way. I also didn't have the time to actually think about it and say, you know what? This isn't the right time for this. I can't give it what it deserves. And I certainly don't want to get it wrong or not have it come out the right way. And it didn't come out. People would argue both ways. Some people were like, it came out fine. And some people were like, wow, you totally screwed that up, But for me, there's a chance to sit back and learn from that and take an inventory. Like, what did I get wrong? Forget about what everybody else is saying. Because it was I thought I was going to lose my job for like 48 hours. Like, I didn't know. And ESPN was awesome. They stood by me and, they were like, hey, we know exactly what you meant. And I was lucky. This guy, Andrew Marchand, who writes for the New York Post, he actually did a big part of his podcast about how I had this background in doing these foster care stories. So it all worked out fine. And honestly, it worked out better for me because I learned a really harsh lesson just about there are certain things, Mark. I grew up, as you know, just sports media in my bones. There are certain things that can fit into a college game day segment, right? That go better there than the actual middle of a football broadcast, and so I learned that lesson. And it was one of those deals where it's like, man, I know what that's like. And I did the whole time people are coming after me, destroying who I am and whatever. I knew I'm a good dude. I knew I had the right intentions. It was a little overwhelming to be like, people like, I can't even get canceled. Like, who's trying to cancel me? Like, I'm nobody, but I was like, wow. Like, and
I'm not cancelable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it really did make me understand, like, this can be gone at any moment. Like this whole thing. I am who I am, and they'll never take that away from me. Not like nobody's looking to take anything from me, but you get what I'm saying. Like, when everything's gone, I am who I am. My connections with other people in my life, my family members, people in sobriety, and there's a lot of stuff that's out of my control, right? So let's work a little bit more and focus on what we can control, and let's understand that there's a lot you can't control, and at the end of the day, you might just be left with what matters to you most, and what is that?
Yeah.
And I learned a pretty valuable lesson. That I'm not to say that I'm not terrified it won't happen again, but if it does, it's like anything in life. I know exactly. I had been through. I got sober. I lived in a halfway house. I worked at a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I remember getting up in the hotel in Kentucky that night when the onslaught was coming, looking in the mirror and being like, "Whoa, like, God, this is you got something for me here, huh?"
Yeah,
but knowing, like, I was going to
Yeah.
get through it, and
Yeah.
I was laughing about it with my buddies.
No, I mean, it's such a great lesson, but it's so interesting how you could go from first to worst in a moment.
Wow.
And it's always, I know it's the way it works, and that's the way the world works, but it's always interesting to me how someone wants to, what is it? Expose, just jump on a mistake.
Yeah,
And
it was a while.
I said, it's so interesting. Like, and by the way, the people who have made the most significant mistakes are usually the people who go after other people. And I'm like, glass house, bro.
Yes.
Glass house.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you understand that that's the way life works? You make a mistake, you learn from it, you move forward.
Yes.
Just try not to be a mistake repeater. But people don't offer a lot of grace. And I think it's unfortunate, but a great lesson that you learned, and it made you better not only as a broadcaster and a commentator and analyst, but today you're even better as a human being.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
I really do. And honestly, I apply more grace to people in my life, especially people I work with, because I know what it's like to have, made a mistake,
Yeah.
and on a level where it's like, and at the end of the day, we're just talking about sports, and let's just have some fun. It's a toy department. Like, try not to make it more complicated than it is.
All right. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. So just like a quick round of questions for you. And I know I got to let you go. I know you have so many important things to do. Most enjoyable coach you've interviewed?
Most enjoyable coach I've interviewed. I'd probably say Kelvin Sampson. Yeah. He's one of those guys where I wish I had more time to talk to him when I talk to him. He's just one of those people, you're around him and you're like, this is special. This guy has so much to offer. And it's because I've had a chance to watch a bunch of practices, and he rides his guys like our coaches rode us. And to me, that's a love language. I really appreciate that.
Love that. Player.
The best player.
That you enjoyed interviewing the most, or you were like, wow, that was really special.
Ryan Leaf. I've talked to Ryan Leaf about his sobriety. And to have seen Ryan Leaf at his absolute bottom and to talk to him about his sobriety is something really special. Same thing with Chris Mullen. Chris Mullen's now an executive per se, or a coach, but like for me and you, he's a player. And that was for somebody, he's another sober guy. I found that to be extremely special. Dame Lillard was another guy. Because when you get guys that are so big time and they're just willing to drop everything and talk to you, and they do it and they're gracious about it, pretty cool.
That's very cool. And last, I guess I would say, person in your field that you look up to the most.
One of your buddies, Chris Fowler, is one of the people who I absolutely.
I see Chris Fowler not every day, but often in our facility. He trains there. Chris
Fowler is one of the guys. I know he's over there. Like, because he is. Here's the thing about Fowler, right? He is. There's a degree of Chris Fowler that still has like that not old, but that classic like news anchor delivery. Like, when I see Chris Fowler, it reminds me of Brent Musburger. Like, here's a guy that's going to have fun, but there is such a gravitas that he brings to the games that he calls that it gives me goosebumps right away. So it's Chris Fowler, it's Jim Nantz, but at the top of the list for me of all time will always be Brent Musburger. Because
he's awesome.
Yeah, Musburger he brought his stranglehold on the English language, but also his ability to have fun. That the combination, and to bring that same gravitas. I've never used that word twice in the same couple minutes, so it's good that I could do that. But to bring that same gravitas that a guy like Fowler does, to me, those are some of the best. I mean, I'll go to bed. I love sports and play-by-play so much. This won't surprise you, but I'll go to bed listening to like an old, CBS basketball game that Brent Musburger called. To me, that is like sweet music. Like, I just love it.
I remember, I love those. I'll tell you something about Chris Fowler in a second, but Brent Musburger, I remember when he did Alabama playing against LSU and Derek Thomas was the outside linebacker. And he said that in the first quarter, Derek Thomas had 3 sacks, a battered pass, and a safety. And he said it was in the first quarter. He said it was the greatest defensive performance he's ever seen in his life. And I remember thinking, Derek Thomas is going to be one of the greatest defensive players in history. And sure enough, he had 8 sacks in one game, or 7. He didn't get the 8th one. And that's when he threw Dave Craig threw the touchdown pass to win the game.
Look at
But,
you.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. Chris Fowler, fun fact, is jacked.
Dude.
Like, I'm just saying, like, he comes over to me. He said, "Hey, Mark, can we get these boxes for the gym?" I said, "Sure, Chris. What do you want them for?" He goes, "Well, I like to do box jumps." And I'm like, dude is 60. He might be older than that. He's doing high-level box jumps. And I'm thinking, you got to calm down, Chris. Right? But
well, he's got that appetite for life that, like, and he's very cool. Like, he'll, I follow him on social media, and there's only certain guys. You're in this category, by the way, but there's certain people who, look.
I'm not in Chris Fowler's category.
Well, I'm going to call it like it is. There's some people who get online and they're like, talking to the camera. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I could care less about what you have to say. Sorry. No offense. But there's a guy like Chris Fowler who, like, if he's walking down the street and he's got something to say about life, I got season tickets. Like, I'm sorry, I just do. And I'm there for that. And he's honest about it. I heard him on an interview once say, sometimes my wife will be like, "Do you need to make that video?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think I do." Sometimes he's compelled to do it. And I know that I appreciate it. He's an amazing guy. And
he is.
I've been, like, in his orbit at some of the seminars and stuff, but he's the best. He right now, in my opinion, he's the best in the business.
My first semi-professional interview was Chris Fowler in Hawaii at the Hula Bowl.
Stop it.
1999.
Wow.
And I remember some other awesome positive things about that. And he was like, "I'm kind of bummed. I met this girl, and she's super awesome, and we're really hitting it off. But now I'm here, and she's there. Married her."
Dude,
It was wild.
What was it like when you and him connected the dots there? That must have been pretty cool.
When he came in, I said, "Hey, Chris, I have no doubt. I'm sure you don't remember me, but my name is Mark Megna, and I remember meeting you at the Hula Bowl. I played in the Hula Bowl in 1999, and you were just awesome. And I remember I was kind of nervous to get interviewed, and he was super young.
Yeah.
Like, and he was just kind of starting, getting, catching momentum. And he talked to myself and Chris Brown, the kicker for the Texans.
Uh-huh.
And we talked a lot, like, that weekend. And I was like, man, this guy's really cool. I mean, he loves what he does. And that was my first experience of being interviewed at the next level. And I was thinking, I just got interviewed by Chris Fowler. At the time, it wasn't the Chris Fowler now, but when
he
I
was
look
still
back,
Scholastic Sports America.
Oh, he was.
We were watching that on ESPN. Yeah.
It was big. It was big.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. You're a dear friend in life. Certainly always here for you, but man, you're just killing it. I love watching you grow and just take the world by storm. So I'd love to do this again sometime, Pete. And I want to get your buddy Todd on here to talk about some things, but I'll tell you, you guys are just make me smile every time I see you. I listen to everything you do, man. I love it.
I love you, Mark. And I appreciate,
likewise, brother.
You know who your people are. When my circle got awfully small and I was going through rough times, you were always a part of it. So that's the kind of guy you are. And this stuff means a lot to me. So thank you for making me a part of it.
Well, thank you for making time for it. Keep crushing it, brother. And we'll talk to you again soon, man. When you come to Miami, we'll do it in person.
Let's do it. Appreciate it, Mark.
And we're gonna get Elio involved.
Elio.
All right. Thank you, Pete.
Mark, I love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
It was awesome, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
See you.
Bye-bye.